So once we understand some of the basics concepts about how the brain works and also the body as the container, it's important to go ahead and talk next about healthy boundaries. Now, there's a lot of people out there that have a lot of really great material around healthy boundaries, and it's always good, I think, to read as much as you can get your hands on so that you start to have a good concept for yourself and how healthy boundaries are going to work for you. When I am sitting down to work with somebody, this is going to be one of the first concepts that I will identify, because the way that I encourage people to look at healthy boundaries is very specific and also very crucial to having their lives work for them, right? So there are three different kinds of boundaries that I'm going to talk about. The first two are going to be the most common boundaries that are out there that are being used. They're also the most dysfunctional. The third boundary that I'm going to talk about is, thankfully, a very healthy boundary and has very positive outcomes for people that utilize them. Okay, so the first boundary, back to my lovely drawings, the first boundary is what we're going to call an overly weak boundary. In an overly weak boundary, the person, and this is where I get to make a joke that I went through 2 master's degrees to learn how to do stick figure drawings. Okay, that is quite a joke. However, stick figure drawings are just as valuable, especially in art therapy and visual representations, as anything else. So we're going to go with it. So the person that has an overly weak boundary, you can see these dots that I've done around the person here. That's to represent that the person doesn't have any blocks from keeping things out. They'll say yes to everything, and they'll focus on out here. The person has a need. I'm going to say yes to them. The work or organization is demanding, so I'm going to say yes to them. If this person out here, their need is great enough, or they want us to do something, then the person with an overly weak boundary is going to automatically say yes. They, in fact, don't even check in with themselves most of the time, or they diminish and they say, oh, I can do it. Oh, it's not that big a deal. Or they dismiss, in other words, their needs in order to take care of the needs of everyone else. So what ends up happening, though, when we do that is we end up telling ourselves, I don't matter. What does matter is this person or that situation or this organization or those demands. But I don't matter. And as we say yes and yes and yes to all these other demands outside of us, we end up then depleting. Each one of these lines is kind of showing how much it depletes, goes down until the X where we hit burnout. And this is when I usually ask people, what do you think, or how do you think this person feels, or what do you think this person is going through? And the answer usually is overwhelm, right? When we're constantly saying yes, we're overwhelmed, we're exhausted, we're feeling, maybe even by this time where burnout hits, we're feeling hopeless and helpless to do anything about it. So usually when the brain gets to this point and the body is depleted, it then switches the pendulum to the opposite extreme. The opposite extreme is what we're going to call an overly rigid boundary. This is where the individual goes ahead and puts up this wall around them that is almost impenetrable, and they are big fat no. No, I'm not going to be there for you. No, I'm not going to help you. Don't even call me, because I'm not even going to answer the phone. I'm not going to come out of my house, come out of my bedroom, whatever it is. I'm walling myself up, or I'm going to use my anger to piss people off and to push people away, right? That anger also acts as a way to say no. Now, at first, when we're saying no, it feels good because we're finally like standing up for ourselves, if you will. But unfortunately, a person with an overly rigid boundary is not only going to say no to the good things, or the bad things, they're also going to say no to the good things. They're going to say no to love, to connection, to support, to all the things that really we need in order to have life work for us. And then by doing this, we are going to still feel like I still don't matter. We're going to feel like we're still not getting what it is we need. which then leads us to feeling, when I ask people, how do you think this person may feel being in an overly rigid boundary? The response usually is isolated, lonely, cut off. There's still then, because their needs are not getting met in healthy ways, there's still depletion, deplete, until burnout. So usually then when the burnout happens, the person goes, you know what? I can't do this anymore. I'm just going to go ahead and have to let go of doing this. And then the pendulum swings to the opposite extreme, because this is all the brain knows how to do. It goes back to this as the option, where maybe if I'm stronger, I can do it longer, or I can do it differently or better, or whatever it is. But the thing is that we go back to what we're familiar with, which is focusing on other people and giving to them and giving to them. And in doing so, we deplete until once again we hit burnout. And the brain will swing back over to this. And then you feel like you're bipolar, because you're going from one extreme to the next, and maybe hang out longer in this one than you do this one. Some people hang out longer in this one than they do this one. But either way, it doesn't work. And again, people are left feeling helpless and hopeless. The great news is that there is an option. The other option is creating a healthy boundary. Now, a person with a healthy boundary, as you can see, I've clearly drawn this person with much more color and much more life and vitality. I attempt to make the person look similar to the client that I have. In this case, this is clearly a female client that I have. But the idea with this is that a person is going to say no to certain things, and then they're going to say yes to other things. But they're going to say no to very specific things and yes to very specific things. They're going to say no to anything that depletes them or has them feel badly about themselves. They're going to say yes to anything that feeds them or brings their energy up and has them feel good about themselves. From the place of, I matter. I matter, not more than anyone. It's just that nobody's living my life. So I need to check and see within myself, what is the right answer for me? So I'm going to ask myself, what is right for me? And I'm not going to have my head, which is where the survival brain is located. I'm not going to have my head answer that question. I'm going to have my intuitive knowing, which is right here in this heart muscle, right in your chest. Your intuitive knowing is an actual thing. And I'm going to talk more about the science of all of that in another video. But you're going to be asking yourself, what is right for me? And then also asking yourself and then following through with, what is one thing I can do right now to take care of me? I may not have control of things out here, people, the weather, the situations, politics, but I can control how I take care of myself through it. And then I'm going to follow through with that self-care. Self-care can look a lot of different ways. It can look like maybe turning off the technology, taking a technology break for a while, going and sitting out in the backyard and putting your feet on the ground barefooted so you get the electromagnetic impulses that helps regulate the nervous system going. It's called earthing. I may talk about that more later. It could be going ahead and calling that friend and having a lunch with a good friend, and you just need a chance to connect with somebody that you know loves you, cares about you, supports you, right? And that you feel the same with them. All of that is a part of self-care, and we can even something as simple. We can always do something in the moment. So even then, it's something as simple as taking a deep breath, holding it for a few seconds, and then releasing. Just by taking a deep breath, you're automatically calming down your nervous system so that your stress drops, your blood pressure drops, everything within your nervous system relaxes so that your body can heal. And that is something that we need more of in our day and age. So also what I tell people is that your number one job is self-care. There's this whole saying in real estate, you know, when you're trying to sell a house or buy a house or whatever, mostly sell a house, the thing that they really focus on is location, location, location. And so what I tell people is your number one job is self-care, self-care, self-care. Number 1, 2, and 3 job, self-care. So this is healthy boundaries, right? When we do these things, life is going to work inside of this. It's quite almost magical, in fact. However, sometimes our brain is going to get triggered and we're going to fall back into one of these other unhealthy places. Don't worry about that. One of the things that I work with people on and make sure to emphasize is self-compassion. Practice self-compassion. There are going to be times when you're able to really fall into this kind of a healthy boundary. And then there are going to be times when you don't. It's important to practice that self-compassion so you can learn from the experience of, okay, how did I fail? How did I, get back into this unhealthy boundary? Now, what do I need to do to take care of myself so I can get back into this kind of boundary, right? I refer to this whole process as practicing healthy selfishness. Selfishness, when it is in an extreme, just like anything else, is going to be unhealthy. But when we practice it in moderation, kind of this balanced sweet spot instead of one of the two extremes, instead what we come out with is following again our intuitive knowing. Use your frontal lobe, which is the executive functioner. I call it the adult part of the brain, the part of the brain that is able to help us to thrive in life. Use your executive functioner. Use mindfulness to focus down into your chest where your intuitive knowing resides. That is the thing that is going to give you the answers and steer you true. When you listen to it, you are going to make those choices in every single moment that is going to have life work out. So, guess what I'm going to have you work on in between now and the next time we talk? Healthy boundaries. You got it. All right, so I'm going to tell you a quick story that helps to illustrate all of this. Okay, maybe not so quick. So when I first started using healthy boundaries myself, I really had been struggling with this concept and how to implement it with my family. I had attempted to use healthy boundaries with people. However, I was not having the success in getting the cooperation. In particular, my relationships with my father, my brother, and my mother. All 3 of those relationships, unfortunately, were really not working for me for various reasons, which I'm going to explain here. So the first relationship that I decided to tackle was with my father. And I realized, okay, the only thing that I really have control over, I can't make them respect my boundaries or listen to what it is that I'm asking of them because it's not working. So what I can control is my self-care. So I determined that what I was going to do is I was going to walk in and I was going to say, for my self-care, this is what I'm going to do. And then follow through with that. So here's how it went. First person I started with was my father. My father, bless his heart, he has passed away now. He, when he was alive, would go ahead and just talk and talk. He was so passionate about the Bible. Everything about the Bible. He really kind of considered himself a prophet. And he was so passionate about it that you were supposed to listen to him. And me, of course, as a diligent daughter, was supposed to listen to him no matter how long it went on or what he was saying. And it used to drive me crazy because I wanted to connect with him in different ways. I didn't want to just talk about the Bible or his latest insight. I wanted to connect with him on other levels as well. I also was frustrated because one week it would be one thing and then he would change his mind and he'd say, now God's shown me the real truth. And I'm like, wasn't last week the real truth? How are you? What? Doesn't make any sense, Dad. Come on. Regardless, we would butt heads because I would challenge him with these things and say, Dad, we need to spend some time with other things. You're not listening to me. You need to listen to me. I'm telling you important stuff, right? So finally I decided, all right, I am just going to go ahead and let him know for my self-care. I kind of determined this for myself. I can only do 30 minutes at a time. And then we go play a game or go outside, but mostly again, focusing on just one thing at a time, which was a game. They had dominoes, so I had worked it out with my stepmother at the time that we were going to go ahead and play dominoes after the 30 minutes. Well, what I know about the human brain is that you really want to preempt it. If you want the best possible outcome, you need to go ahead and preempt. And what that means basically is you give them a heads up. So on one of my visits to go see my dad, I told him, Dad, just before you get started, I'm going to let you know that I've been working a lot on self-care. And one of the things that is in alignment with that is realizing that I can only do 30 minutes at a time of listening to, again, your latest insight. At the end of 30 minutes, next visit, we'll go ahead and stop, and then we'll play a game. And he just was like, we're not playing any games. I'm not playing any games. You're going to listen to me. Now, in the past, I would argue with him about this and really point out to him that he was being selfish. He would turn around and point out the same thing about me, and then we'd just spiral into this unhappy place with each other. So this time I didn't even go there. I just said, I got it. And for my self-care, this is what I need to do. So go ahead. Last week you were talking about da-da-da-da. What was that all about? Have you made any more progress with that? So for this visit, I just let him talk, right? Didn't interrupt him, didn't argue with him, nothing. I would only ask maybe a question here and there for clarification, but that was it. So the next visit comes. And I say to my dad, okay, Dad, just letting you know, this is the visit where we're going to do 30 minutes, and I'll give you, after 20 minutes, let you know that you've got 10 minutes left and maybe a 2-minute kind of announcement. And then at the end of the 30 minutes, we'll stop and we'll play the game. And he says, I'm not playing any stupid game. You're going to listen to me. I said, I got it. For my self-care, this is what I need to do. So we're going to go ahead and get started. It's 2:30 now. So at 2:50, at 3 o'clock, we'll be done. And at 2:50, I'll give you the 10-minute notice, et cetera, et cetera. So, okay, go ahead. You were talking about last time, what was this? And I basically moved him in the direction of how I wanted the conversation to go. And of course, I knew he wanted to go that direction anyway, so it worked. So he's talking, and again, I'm listening. And after 20 minutes, I stop him and I say, okay, so it's been 20 minutes. You've got 10 minutes to go ahead and put in everything that you want me to know, just, for this time. And then anything you don't share this time, you can share next time. We can do it then. And he says, 10 minutes? I can't tell you everything there is to tell you in 10 minutes. You're going to listen to me. And again, in the past, I would have gotten in an argument with him at this point, but decided, I'm not going to go there with him this time. I said, I got it. For my self-care, this is what I need to do. So tell me again, you were talking that you went from this. How about that part, right? So I redirected him into what I knew he wanted to talk about. Got him going, and he's talking about this and, this and this and he's a very intense man. So he was going, and then I gave him the 2-minute mark. Okay, Dad, 2 more minutes now. Laser it in. Like, get everything you want to in that 2 minutes, and then we're going to go play a game. 2 minutes! I can't tell you everything there is to tell you in 2 minutes. You're going to listen to me. Right? Just upset. He was so upset. And I said, I got it. And for my self-care, this is what I need to do. So go ahead. Again, you were talking about, no, you need to listen to me. I have more to tell you. I got it. And anything you don't finish this time, we're going to talk about next time. So go ahead. Again, you were talking about Well, you're going to listen to me. I got it. So you were saying, and I just kept redirecting him, right? So finally he's like, okay, well, yes, I was talking about that and this and this and that. 2 minutes flies by. And then I say to him, okay, Dad, so 30 minutes is up. We're going to go ahead and go to the table and we're going to play a game. He slams his Bible shut and he says, I'm not playing any stupid game. Right? Now you have to know that my dad is over 6 feet. He's a big guy. He has this big white beard, white hair. He would have made the perfect Santa Claus. However, he also thought that Christmas was basically a pagan holiday. Jesus wasn't even born until October. So he wasn't doing Santa Claus ever, right? So he's a big, somewhat intimidating man. So when he's yelling at me, I have to take a moment and just Deborah, you're safe. Everything's okay. And relax. You're still doing this. What I also know is that the brain needs some momentum, right? So I went ahead and realized I was in the way between him where he was sitting and the table where we were going to play dominoes. So I got up, I moved the chair over so it was out of the way, and then I kind of moved to the side and I said, see, Dad, the table's right over here. Come on over. You could sit right there. He didn't budge. He grabbed onto the side of the chair and he looks at me and he goes, I'm not moving and you can't make me. He did not have a smile on his face. He was serious. And I almost started laughing at this point because it was kind of comical. However, I just took a deep breath and I said, Dad, come on. The table's right over there. It's not that far. I know you can do it. You know, a little bit of teasing goes a long way. So I just gently kind of cupped his hand and I gave him a little bit of a tug. Again, sometimes the brain just needs a little extra help creating momentum to go for it. Come on, it's just right over there. You can do it. Sure enough, he got up out of the chair, stomped over to the table, sat down and says, how do you play this stupid game anyway? Okay, I'm going to tell you how it works. So then we got going. My dad, my stepmom, myself, were all there at the table playing dominoes, and we got into the game. And pretty far into the game, I was looking at where I could go, and I couldn't quite find a place. And apparently I was taking way too long on where I was going to go, because Dad leans over and he slams his hands down on the table and he looks at me with these eyes and he goes, draw. And when he did this, I did. Well, apparently he had finally gotten the response out of me that he had hoped for, because as he's staring at me leaning over, I saw this little crook of a smile come up on the corner of his mouth, and I realized he got me. I started laughing. He started laughing. My stepmother was laughing. And somehow that magically broke the ice because he relaxed and we had a good time. Next visit comes. Dad, I just want to remind you, again, we're going to do 30 minutes today. And then at the 20-minute mark, I'll give you a 10-minute heads up. At the 2-minute mark, I'll give you a 2-minute heads up. And then we'll stop and we'll play the game. Yeah, Deborah, okay, I got it. Here's some things that are going on. And this is my latest insight, right? So I'm like, okay, we're going to do this again. So the only thing, again, that I can control is my own self-care. I'm listening. I'm about ready to give him the 10-minute mark. And he stops and he says, okay, I think that's about it. Come on, let's get to the table. I want to beat you today at dominoes. I was like, what, Dad? Wait. You got 10 minutes left. Are you sure you don't want to use the 10 minutes? I mean, this is not normal for you. And he said, no, I know, but I really want to get you today. The other stuff can wait for now. Okay, if you're sure. Yeah. Let's go ahead and play a game. Okay. We play dominoes, have a wonderful time, right? Next visit comes. Dad, I just want to say, last time you didn't take the full 30 minutes. Remember, you have the full 30 minutes this time. And, you can use that full 30 minutes if you want to. Okay, yeah, I got it. All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started. And again, 20-minute mark, 2-minute mark, 10-minute mark, you know what I mean. I'll give you those marks. So he's talking, and what I've noticed by this time is that he's getting less and less animated. Usually he's got this intensity about him, but this time he's kind of like this, and just not as animated as he usually was. And I thought, well, that's interesting. 10 minutes into him talking, he said, well, you know what? I didn't do much studying this week, so that's it. Let's go ahead and play a game. I really want to get you today. Wait a minute, Dad. Who are you and what did you do with my father? This had never happened. He would never give up his chance, his opportunity to talk. We, in fact, I remember when we were kids, we would go to all these different churches. And I thought in my head that he wanted us to consider all the possibilities out there. There's lots of churches to choose from, and they're all great in their own way. That's what I made up in my brain. I found out in my adult years that he would go up to the pastors after church and tell them what they were doing wrong in their sermons. And then he was asked to not come back. He, in other words, was so intense with his passion about what he was doing that he would alienate people, unfortunately. And he, in his mind, he felt like he never had any friends because he couldn't stop himself from doing this. So he ended the 10 minutes and said, I really want to get you. I'm like, are you sure? And he said, yeah, come on, let's go. I want to play. So we played dominoes, had a great time. Next visit comes. I'm about ready to tell him, okay, Dad, you got 30 minutes. And he says, Deborah, instead of talking about the Bible today, what I'd like to do is let's play dominoes, and then I want to take you outside, and I want to show you the garden, and I want to show you the animals, and just share with you what's going on the farm. What? I was flabbergasted. It was amazing to me. I just was like, that sounds amazing, Dad. That's what I've always wanted. However, wait a minute. Are you sure? Are you really sure? Yeah. It's okay. So we did. We played dominoes. We went outside. And from that point forward, he did not once ever talk with me about his latest insight or talk about the Bible. We still connected. In fact, we used to never even talk on the phone. He would always hand the phone over to my stepmother, and she would be the go-between between us because he was always concerned with getting in an argument with me. However, after I set these boundaries and implemented the self-care with him, he would talk to me on the phone. One day on the phone, he says, Deborah, you're my beloved. It's like, Dad, did you just say I'm your beloved? And he's like, yeah, you're my beloved. I'm like, you would have never used that word with me before. What has changed? And he said, I don't know. He said, but I really do love talking to you. I love you, Deborah. I love you too, Dad. I love talking to you too. He went on to share with me that when he was growing up, his family had really treated him like he didn't have to do things that he didn't want to do. And all he had to do to get out of him was throw a temper tantrum. Be stubborn and unruly. And he would get out of things all the time. He also took that practice and brought it all the way into his adulthood until I went ahead and let him through his temper tantrum, but still went through with my self-care. And he said, nobody's ever done that with me before, Deborah. It was so moving for me that I realized I didn't have to be that way, that I had a choice. He said, that's made a big difference for me, and it's really made me think. I wasn't expecting that as an outcome, but it was really cool. And then 6 years ago, he passed away from cancer. It was all over his body. And on his deathbed, I got to have a really amazing conversation with him. He had stopped reading his Bible, wasn't praying when he was eating food. The whole 36 years he was together with my stepmother, he had never done that. And she pulled me aside and said, Deborah, will you talk with him? I don't know what's going on. This is not like him. I said, of course, yeah, I'll talk to him. So I asked him, Dad, what's going on? Why aren't you praying for your food? Why aren't you reading your Bible? And he thought about it for a second. And he said, Deborah, I don't know how to have faith in a God that doesn't answer my prayers. And I said, how did God not answer your prayers? He says, I fully had faith that he was going to heal me from this cancer, that I was not going to die from this. And he said, and here you know, my kidneys are shutting down from the cancer and I could die any minute. And I just feel like my faith is gone. Why believe anymore? And I said, well, Dad, I have a different version of faith. Would you be willing to hear that? Now, prior to the work that I had done with him, he would have never been open to hearing my version of faith. But this time he was. And he said, yeah, I would be willing. I do want to hear what you have to say about this. I said, well, my version of faith, Dad, is that God has us no matter what. Even in death, he still has you and you're still okay. I said, when you look at it from that perspective, does that help at all? He said, yeah, actually, it helps a lot. I said, well, maybe you can think of it that way and keep thinking of it that way. I then was able to go on with him with a specific exercise that helped to calm down his nervous system, so he was that much more peaceful when he passed away 2 weeks later. I consider it a miracle that I had that time with him and an opportunity to make a difference for him. I'm going to share with you about setting boundaries with my brother then and then my mother, because they were also pretty amazing stories. However, I'm going to end this video now. So again, you matter. Take care of you. And you can go ahead and order my book, Bloom, You're More Powerful Than You Realize, on Amazon. Take care.